potential? Absolutely. Does everybody have the courage, the strength, the possibilities deep inside them to design the life of their dreams? I believe that. I think what stops most people, the top things that stop most people is, number one, lack of awareness. They don't realize they're settling or playing small. They haven't really thought about it until you bring it up. I get the benefit of being on stage, looking at the audience. When I talk about playing small, I watch the body language shrink. I watch the face, the smirk, the sad look, the eyes cast down. Like I get to see them take that thought in, like, oh my gosh, maybe I have been playing small, right? So I think number one, it's lack of awareness. And then we got to decide, okay, where in your life are you dissatisfied? And again, the main categories, I believe, would be in health, for sure. Because if you don't have your health, nothing else is going to matter. So health, career, relationships, creative expression. And when I'm talking creative expression, like your podcast, like my speaking, writing, dancing, singing, playing an instrument, these passions that we have. So awareness, identifying where you're playing small, doing the work to figure out why you're playing small. And that work can be as easy as reading a good personal development book, or doing a little bit of journaling, or just asking yourself the question, why am I playing small, and am I willing to continue to play small? Even if you can't figure out why you've been playing small, you can make the decision to take a step forward, to do something to make a shift. I don't think we need therapy for mental health. There's places for therapy, but I don't think they need to, noodle on this for months and years. I think decisions can be made, actions can be taken, a shift in perspective can happen immediately. And again, comes back to awareness. And like you said, people are skeptical. I think in many cases, they're not as much skeptical as they just haven't thought about it. Most people don't sit down and go, how am I playing small in my life? Right?
Yeah.
They'd rather go, oh, that personal development mumbo jumbo. I don't need to work on myself. Right? So it's just different questions to ask yourself, and finding the courage to answer yourself.
Well, and speaking of courage and, having the insight to understand what you're capable of doing, David Meltzer introduced us online, and he's obviously one of my favorites, great mentor for me. He got down on me the other day because we were talking about a project, and I said, Dave, I'm pretty sure it's going to work out. And he stops me in my tracks. He almost yells at me like a dad. He goes, what do you mean you're pretty sure? You need to put out, you are sure, and put out a positive message, because once you start putting out any ounce of self-doubt or doubt, the world gravitates towards that. And I think that plays a role in what you're saying about people understanding and not being skeptical, but understanding like, hey, I do have just as much option as anybody else to succeed in the things that I have goals for.
Yep, and that's a practice. That self-talk, that's really what David's talking about, is the law of attraction, right? What we think about, we bring about. I believe in the law of attraction as much as I believe in gravity and that the world is round. So what we think about creates our reality. So from the listener standpoint, wherever you are in your life, in whatever area of health, creative expression, career, relationship, wherever you are in your life, it is a direct result of your thoughts. Most people maybe can intellectually tell you, oh yeah, what we think about, we bring about, but have they really stopped and taken it from words to a knowing or a belief, where I'm pointing to my head, right? An intellectual belief to a knowing, and now I'm pointing to my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And taking the time to consider, what are my thoughts? What am I thinking every day? What am I saying to myself every day? Right?
Yeah.
And for most people, the books tell us what we think, like 80,000 thoughts a day, and most of those thoughts are negative, and we think the same negative thoughts every day because most people are on autopilot and they're not aware. It's another case for personal development. It helps you start to pay attention to your thoughts, right? So when we shift our thoughts to a more positive aspect, it changes our actions, changes our behavior, changes the results. Just finding the courage to start paying attention to what we're thinking, I mean, that's a life changer right there. So, and I get where Dave's coming from. And again, how do people master that? That's mastered over a lifetime. That is a ongoing daily practice to take charge of your thoughts. So when the negative ones come through, say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna say that again. It happens to me in yoga. So perhaps Renee will put me in a new position, and I may look at her. I've done this many times. Looking, oh my gosh, was that hard? And then I catch myself. She's ready for me to catch myself. And I'm like, oh, that was a fascinating new pose, right? So I'm even taking into my yoga. Everything we say creates the results.
Well, I think it's hard for people to imagine that all the time without, because people want something tangible that they can hang on to. And the example I like to give them about what's in the environment and how it is real and true is the old, if you ever walk into a room and there's a couple in there and the second you walk in that they're in an argument, nobody said anything, but you can just feel the weight of that room because of the argument and the tension. And I like to relate that to putting out negative thoughts into the world and that energy you get from those negative thoughts, because you can feel that. Whereas if you walked in the room and you knew they were happy, you would feel a different emotion when you walked in there, even if nothing was said, because it just emanates out of their presence.
Yep, I agree 100%. So when we look at the people in our lives, you don't have to be a salesperson, anybody in your life, look at who you're attracting, right? We attract likes, right? So when we're being positive, we're drawing in positive people. When we're negative, full of doubt, just look at the people in your life. That's usually a good reflection. I have a mantra on the same topic. I have a mantra that I say every day. I put my arms up in a power pose, put my arms up, straight up, and go, the perfect people, situation, and opportunities are going to present themselves, and I'm going to be aware enough to pay attention.
I love that.
I say that every day, and I'm attracting the perfect people, situations, and opportunities. That's purposeful. So nothing's an accident. Nothing's random. That's opening myself up to unlimited possibilities, which is a much more fun way to go through life than, oh God, what the hell's going to happen today?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. A lot of the things that we're talking about might feel like they only apply to people that are entrepreneurs or have an entrepreneurial life and they control their schedule or when and where they go to work. But that's not necessarily true. This stuff applies to anybody, including those that are working for employers. And even if it's that 9-to-5 job or that 6 a.m. to 2 construction job or what it might be, these apply to everybody in every situation. I'm sure that you would agree, but how do you convey that message to those people that are in that 9-to-5 job that feel like it's a little bit hopeless in terms of their destinies in somebody else's hands?
Nope, and I appreciate that very much. I would say for people who feel like their life and their destinies in other people's hands are going to be impacted even more positively. It's just, again, I don't think, and everyone listening will have to decide for themselves, they'll have to ask themselves, have you really given this some thought? You could be in a job that doesn't serve you right now, but with the right work, with the right thought process, with the right education, with the right game plan, with asking good questions, with Google, you could find that perfect new job that pays you more, that makes you more satisfied, that use your creativity more, people that you enjoy working with. Again, it's a matter of settling because you don't feel like you have options and or coming up with creative solutions and moving in a direction that you want to. How many stories do we see, Jim, of people who have been beat down or injured or lost everything? It just seems like the whole world is stacked against them that rise up to greatness. You don't have to lose a limb or get a divorce or have some major betrayal to make shifts in your life. So whatever your job is now, whatever your relationships are, whatever your debt is now, step one, claim it. Where we are is where we are, right? And then come up with a game plan to move forward. But I think that step one's really important. Claim it, no judgment, no blame, claim it. And then, okay, what does the future look like? Like you said, looking in the future, what's going to be better? Do you want a different job? Can you strengthen the relationship? Are you looking for, do you want to improve the health and get the weight off? I mean, those are choices. You may not be able to make a shift immediately, but you can at least get the dream and the idea and start working on the game plan immediately. I mean, no one's going to run our lives for us. No one's going to make the shift for us. This all comes from digging deep and making a decision that I want my life to look a certain way, and it's up to me to make that happen. It's not like my retirement plan right now. I was just having a talk with my financial guy. I'm not creating my financial plan at 59 with the idea that Mr. Next is going to present himself and I'm going to have a 2-income life. Now, the odds of that happening are probably pretty good, but I'm not going to create my plan with that in place, right? So, just from a health standpoint, if I want to be fit, that's why I do my yoga. That's why I work out with my weights. That's why I go for a little run. It's why I eat well, because my health is a priority. I would say to the listeners, if you're not happy in your career, if you're not happy with your health, if you're not happy in any place in your life, the number one thing you can do is make a commitment to start working on yourself. Grab a personal development book and start working on yourself. Jim Rohn, a famous thought leader, one of my favorite quotes from Jim Rohn, work harder on yourself than your job or your career. Work harder on yourself. Right? So I would say for those people who are thinking, I'm not happy, but how do I put this into practice? Start with 30 minutes a day of personal development reading. And if you miss a day, it's just like the diet. Get back on it the next day. And when I'm talking about personal development books, I'm not talking about spiritual books, although I read spiritual books. I'm not talking about books on leadership, although books on leadership are good. I'm talking about books that get you to think about you and who you are and how you operate and what you're thinking and what are your habits been, so that you then, through awareness, can make the choice to do things differently. That's a glorious way to go through life. It's not always going to be easy, but we're in charge. And how long are you going to wait? If not now, when? People at the end of their life don't look back and say, gosh, I wish I would have worked more, or, they say, I wish I would have lived more. Now's the time to make that shift. Today, do something to move yourself in the direction of your dreams.
My grandfather's 95, and I specifically asked him last week if he had any regrets. He did not. And I said, well, any advice? And he said, do what you love. Love what you do. And at 95, that's pretty sound advice, because when you're looking back at all those years, you can waste a lot of time doing something that you don't love to do.
Exactly. Good for Grandpa.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, again, looking through your website, I'd love to, in brief, can you tell us about the, what you do and where our audience can find you and some of the fascinating things you're doing in your professional life? Because I see that there's a number of ways that you can help people.
No, I appreciate that. Well, I'm a professional speaker, and my audience really is across the board. It started off with speakers and entrepreneurs. Now I've done a lot of work with insurance companies, or, I'm going to talk for the BIA, I'm hoping next year, and some women's conferences. And so any group that's looking for a fresh voice, perhaps a woman's voice, a strong woman's voice, to talk about possibilities, unlimited possibilities. One unique thing I do is I customize all my talks to fit the needs of my client. And I believe that's really what set me apart. Because a lot of people have some very good material and they do the same material all the time. I can customize and prefer to customize so that when I take the stage, I am talking to their